So then that was how Kasper Stuka took the title win in the Formula Winter Series. We saw the conclusion of the season just now here in their second and final race at the Circuit de Barcelona, Catalunya. All day today, we've also been talking to you about something exciting and new coming into the Giedelijk Racing paddock for the 2023-2024 winter season, and that is the new GT4 Winter Series. Let's get some impressions from the faces and voices behind organising this exciting new championship.
You can bring a friend, ride right in, let's go. Come forward and dip in the toe. Let the rhythm take control. It's going down tonight, yeah. Ride right in, let's go. Come forward and dip in the toe. Let the rhythm take control. It's going down tonight, yeah. You can bring a friend, ride right in, let's go. Come forward and dip in the toe. Let the rhythm take control. It's going down tonight, yeah. Ride right in, let's go. Come forward and dip in the toe. Let the rhythm take control. It's going down tonight, yeah.
We're here in Jerez.
Coming here for the summer.
This is my first time ever here in the
of this year, which means more work as well for Mart Hilgenberg, who is responsible for the marketing for GT Winter Series, for Formula Winter Series, and now for GT4 Winter Series as well. But I think, Mart, we can't really complain because it's a popular class.
Exactly, it's a popular class. The thing is, when there's more classes driving in a race, then most of the time people are talking about the fastest classes, so GT3, but the GT4 class doesn't get that much recognition. And with us, now, the GT4 class will get recognition. And, I mean, they should, because it's a cool class. There's racing action till the limit, till the sky. So it's a really cool class, and we're looking forward to it.
So the thing is, we have 25 minutes sprint races with so many cars, so many classes. On the one hand, of course, that's a very nice thing because it keeps everybody excited. But on the other hand, it's so difficult to highlight specific classes and drivers.
Exactly. And with us, we are able to highlight these different classes, these different drivers of this class. So it's a really cool new thing. And yeah, we're really excited.
And it's supposed to start in December 2023. However, Mart, you already have a website up and running.
Exactly. So we are already taking big steps. We are already preparing for the next season. We've got a website, gt4-winter-series.com, where the teams can already register at the registration tab and show us that they are interested in driving with us next season. So, yeah, we come prepared.
So that's one way of following it online, and Giedelijk Racing are also being busy to find another one. Live stream coverage, we've done it twice this season, and I think, Mart, the idea is, if it works out, to have a full season coverage next season, isn't it?
Exactly. The racing season also in the winter is so exciting. It's so much action, cool cars driving, and it's just, you need to show it. We think you just need to show the racing bring it to the public, bring it to the people, and we're really trying to get the live stream for next year for every race we do.
So stay tuned for the new GT4 Winter Series coming next season. So there you go, another very exciting addition to the GT Winter Series package, the very new GT4 Winter Series coming up next season. Robin Seelbach is responsible for the sales in the GT Winter Series, well, package we can now say, because we're up to 3 championships now, and it's going to be an own one for GT4 cars and drivers and teams.
Yes, correct. Currently the GT4 cars race together with GT3 cars and other cars in the GT Winter Series, and in the future they will have their own race.
So to make it clear, Robin, there won't be any GT4 cars left in the GT Winter Series field. They're going to have their own championships exclusively for them.
Exactly. So the young drivers competing in GT4 can present themselves and can go for the overall victory, which is not possible against the GT3 cars in GT Winter Series.
So can we expect the teams and drivers currently running in the GT Winter Series with GT4 cars, can we expect them to be in the GT4 Winter Series, or how do you think will the grid look like?
Yes, I guess we can expect them to be in the GT4 Winter Series next year, and hopefully some other teams as well. But the feedback is very good.
So when you set up a new championship like this, do you go to the teams before and ask them what they think about it, or how does it work?
Yeah, exactly. Most of the things we develop are requested by the teams, and we listen and then we improve.
So, interesting news for the upcoming 2023 and 24 season, the new GT4 Winter Series. So, as you can see, there is exciting news for the upcoming season with the introduction of the brand new GT4 Winter Series. Stefan Löhner is the series coordinator already for the GT Winter Series, already for the Formula Winter Series, and now for the GT4s as well. So busy days for you, Stefan.
Definitely, and that is exactly the reason why we already start preparing the next season right now, even before the last race of this year's season has come to an end.
So from your point of view, what is the general idea behind the new GT4 Winter Series?
Our idea is to separate the GT4 cars. At the moment, they're driving within the the GT Winter Series, and next year we will have a separate race just for the GT4 cars with own regulations and just GT4 cars.
So for the GT Winter Series, we won't see any GT4 cars any longer. We will have a separate grid, a separate championship, the lot.
That is correct, yes, completely separated.
How will the race mode look like? Can you already confirm how this will look like?
At the moment, we are planning with 2 30-minute races and an additional 1-hour endurance race.
And of course, you're working very closely to the drivers and to the teams. What sort of participants do you expect for the GT4 Winter Series?
Just like this year, we expect 2 target groups. So we expect the young upcoming talents that want to prove themselves, and as well some gentleman drivers that want to have a good time here driving in the winter in Spain and Portugal.
I can't blame them. What about the grid size? How many cars can we expect?
I expect it to be around 20 cars next season.
Okay, and this might also be an interesting factor for the GT Winter Series, because of course it's a huge grid, which we always like, but of course in a short 25-minute sprint race there is always the danger of safety cars and everything, so that might help to have a slightly smaller GT Winter Series grid as well.
Exactly. That's also the idea. We had more cars actually than we expected in the GT Winter Series this season. That also creates some problems with the separation of the GT4 and GT Winter Series. It helps a lot, of course.
And I think we can also see sort of a package growing now with GT Winter Series, with single-seaters, with GT4 cars. It's a proper package now.
Definitely, yeah. The Winter Series, as you said, we are already at 3 racing series then, and for me it's great when you of course it's a lot of work to do, but once you see here the paddock full of trucks and drivers, it's rewarding to see that. Yes.
Looking forward to it. So, upcoming next season, the new GT4 Winter Series. So, as you can see, very exciting news in the GT Winter Series package with the introduction of the new GT4 Winter Series. Very much to the delight of Markus Gedlich, who is the CEO of Gedlich Racing, who, by the way, are the promoters of the GT Winter Series, of the Formula Winter Series, and now the GT4 Winter Series just as well. Markus, in your own words, what is the concept and the idea behind the GT4 Winter Series?
Well, Lucas, the GT4 Winter Series is going to be an officially registered and by the SRO organization licensed GT4 championship that hosts exclusively GT4 cars. And it will follow mainly the same rules and regulations as all the international GT4 series is. We're going to have Pirelli tires like most of them have. And we will be supplied by the SRO with a BOP, a balance of performance that's going to be monitored by the sporting commissioners, of course.
It's an important factor, isn't it? Because you mentioned it's officially licensed. You can't just call your championship a GT4 series. There's a bit more to it.
That's right, because all the rights are with the SRO, which is Stefan Rattel's organization that runs and also licenses most of the major GT4 series all around the globe.
Right, so it's basically set. There is also some sort of calendar which is almost there. So you actually started very early in terms of preparing it.
Yeah, we are lucky because we have very good connections to the tracks, and we were able to set up at least a preliminary calendar at a very early stage. I mean, it's almost 1 year to go, but still we already have a quite valid calendar. There's 1 or 2 tracks that could be changed, but mainly you can rely on what is written on our website already.
So we mentioned there is already a certain portfolio with the GT Winter Series, with the Formula Winter Series. Where does the new GT4 category fit in?
Well, the GT Winter Series, right from the beginning, thrives on a very lively mixture between amateurs and professionals. And this is going to continue in GT4 Winter Series, as we will have several classes for pros, for amateurs, and for the mixture of both. And due to that, we are very sure as a promoter that GT4 championship is going to be as professional as the GT Winter Series is now.
So can we expect a whole motorsport package then for the upcoming season with 3 different championships?
At least 3. There might be a little bit more to come, but for now, which is definitely safe, is the Formula Winter Series, the GT4 Winter Series, and of course, as the platform provider, the GT Winter Series.
And of course, you will also continue your track day programs, I guess.
Yes, of course. There's going to be race testing days prior to all the GT Winter Series events. And a part of that, in a different event series, there's going to be what we call endless summer track days that provide track day driving for amateur racers, not for the professionals. So this is going to be split into 2 different calendars for 2 different target groups.
So there you go. This is the concept for the very new GT4 Winter Series coming up next season.
custom, handcrafted mountain bikes. It all starts with an idea, driven by the adventures that formed us, shaped by the mountains around us. We build the best bikes for us and our friends. Propane bicycles. Customize yours now.
Back live at the Barcelona pit lane, not even half an hour left until the start of the last race of this season, the big 60-minute endurance race for the GT Winter Series here at Barcelona. But first of all, Adam and I, of course, wanted to catch up with the man who brought delight to the second race we saw earlier on, Ronnie Brimmer in his very spectacular KTM in GT2 specification, beating that was amazing excitement from you there.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit quicker on the straight and a bit slower in the corner, so I think we had the speed two different ways, so it wasn't an easy race. And maybe in the end I was a bit lucky that I had a GT4 in between me and the other car, so I knew I could go quick, and they were not allowed to overtake before the start-finish, so in that way it was a bit easy in the end, but before that it was not so easy.
It wasn't an easy race, but Adam, certainly one that was very, very enjoyable to do commentary on, wasn't it?
Yeah, of course, and as the people at home will have seen, we had the onboard with Mikael Hughes and indeed with Kenneth Heyer, where every time we got onto the main straight, you would just disappear, of course. Today you were on the right side of that equation, of course, because you had the quicker car. Have you ever been in a situation opposite where you've got the car that hasn't got the straight line speed?
Of course, I've been racing for 25 years, so I've tried a little bit different things. But I think also in the start they were so focused on the right side, so I could go on the left, and when they discovered too late, then I had to lead into the first corner. So that was, probably not so easy next time.
And of course, the next race is 1 hour rather than 25 minutes. We know you've got less downforce. We know you've got more power to put down. How does that affect you in terms of tyres going into the hour-long race? We know for you there is no driver change. Will there be a tyre change?
No tyre change, but also the other drivers, there's some other drivers not changing as well. So I think it will be interesting to see over the distance. But I think the main issue will be all the overlap cars, how quick you get through the traffic, and not so much the speed, because they were actually, I think, 2 seconds quicker than me on the lap time, but we just in two different places, you know, so I think traffic will be the key.
Yeah. And I think many people started to like GT2 machinery right from its beginning. But still, I think that's one of the beauties of GT Winter Series, isn't it? To have all these different cars in one very, very short, intensive race.
Yeah, I must say it's the first time we entered the series. We entered last weekend, and we're very happy with it. I think they're doing a good job, and of course it's frustrating when somebody has more horsepower on the straight, and lucky for me, it was me having the horsepower this time. But at the same time, when I'm behind them, I can't keep up with the corners. I'm losing some downforce being too close to them, so I need the extra power on the straight. So yeah, we will see.
And let's remind ourselves, last year, Adam, right here at Barcelona, I think we had LMP3 and Radical Machinery fighting against the GT3 car. So there is always something like this going on in GT Winter Series.
Exactly. It's very much, it's a smorgasbord. It's a pick and mix variety. We've got GT3 cars from professional teams like Schubert, U-Sportwagen Technik, and then we've of course got some of these outliers that can keep up with the GT3s, make life hard for them in your hands, and that makes the racing oh so much more competitive. competitive.
So you mentioned it's only your second time in GT Winter Series. So why did you decide to join?
It was actually because Thomas Anderson, the other guy in the other car, needed some points on his license so we could do the GT2 later on. So we needed to do that before he could do it. So we saw the series, it was possible, and we're quite happy with that.
That's another point, Adam, that I really like. The variety of reasons why people come and join the championship. It's absolutely fabulous. It's gaining experience, it's gaining license points, it's because of being bored over the winter time. It's fabulous.
Everyone's got a different objective. Some people are here to make money, coach their drivers. Other people are here to have a jolly good time and win some races. We're going to have to let this man go to do just that because the earplugs are coming on. But we let Ronnie go. Let's see if he can make it 2 from 3 later on.
So what's your pick for the endurance race? What do you think?
Okay. Kenneth, last time at Valencia, I reckon he would have run the race, or last time we streamed, of course, at Valencia. I think he would have won the race if it wasn't for that pit stop penalty that allowed the Engstler Audi to eventually take the win. My suggestion is that man driving solo, across 60 minutes, that'll be the most consistent car up at the sharp end. I think that might be our winner.
And that's one of the most important factors, isn't it? Because normally when you have two sort of drivers in GT Winter Series, it's a very rare finding to have equal and level drivers. Sometimes it's a gentleman together with a pro or two gentlemen or what, but it's very, very hard to find a level playing field there.
Very difficult indeed. I'll tell you what else is hard, running upstairs. And I know that's what I've got coming up in just a few seconds, because these guys are getting ready to go and do their lap towards the pre-grid, and I'm going to have to do a runner.
Right, Adam. Let's go then. Thank you very much. I'm just going to keep your microphone here in the pit lane. So Adam Weller will be back very, very soon with the commentary for the endurance race, and of course to give him some time to find his place in the commentary box. Let's head to the commercials for one more time today, and then it's almost time for the decider here at Barcelona. The last race, the endurance race for the GT Winter Series 2022 and 23.
Custom, handcrafted mountain bikes. It all starts with an idea, driven by the adventures that formed us, shaped by the mountains around us. We build the best bikes for us and our friends. Propane bicycles. Customize yours now.
Green lights at pit exit then for the very last time in the 2022 and 23 season for the GT Winter Series, brought to you live from Barcelona. 60 minutes of endurance competition coming up with a pit stop in the middle of the race. And as we discussed earlier with Adam Weller, our commentator, that's going to be one of the main factors in the race. Of course, we spoke to Ronnie Bremer, who was our winner in race 2 earlier on with his GT2 spec KTM. Adam already picked Kenneth Heyer as his big favorite for the endurance victory as far as the overall classification is concerned. But let's not forget there is a championship title at stake. We saw one of the GT4 entered cars, driven by Simon Prim, being the championship leader before we went to Barcelona. But of course, we had very, very good results in the first race earlier on for Johannes in his Cup Porsche. So that's going to be very interesting if Johannes Kapfinger might still be able to grab the championship title in this deciding 60-minute endurance race here at Barcelona. Coming up now with Adam Weller in the commentary box.
There we go then. We are seeing the cars already on the grid for the season finale, the final race of the GT Winter Series. It's here already, and I'm very much looking forward to this 60-minute race. Looking at the grid, we again have a lot of those cars we'd expect towards the sharp end of the order. The GT4s are in their big cluster that we saw in the earlier second race, and of course we've got a litany of Porsche Carrera Cup 992 cars, and it's going to be a very compelling motor race. Interesting to see that the 992 car, the number 992 that was in the gravel earlier on after a collision with the Drexel KTM, is actually heading to the grid. We just saw it on screen there, so that car, in spite of its damage, has been repaired and ready to go racing again, so a good job from the 992 crew, Marcus Sledmeier and co. Or Marcus, well, it says Sedlmeier and Sledmeier on various different sheets. I think it's Sedlmeier, though. Our pole sitter for this coming race is going to be the number 20 Schubert Motorsport BMW. Now, I'm not sure who's going to be starting that car. The grid sheet is often a little bit deceiving on that front, but the grid sheet seems to think it's going to be Daniel Harper. So does the timing and scoring. So I think that the BMW factory driver, the young British superstar, just moving up from the BMW junior team into a factory seat, I suspect that it will be him starting that car, as that's what all the documentation is telling us. We know for a fact that Michael Hughes will be starting the number 91 car alongside him, of course, because he is the only driver in that wonderful Hughes Sportwagen Technique Porsche. It is, as I mentioned earlier on, currently up for sale if somebody is itching to get into a GT3 car. Kenneth Hyatt is next on that grid. He will start in third position in the Equip Vitesse prepared Mercedes-AMG GT3, which is just making its way to its grid slot there on screen, with the Schubert BMW following it. That car, of course, solo driven, as he stops just in front of Jill, the team manager. And Kenneth Hyatt, very, very well-seasoned racing driver. As we saw, quite competitive scrap between them. Between himself and Michael Hughes across both races so far, and we're very much looking forward to seeing how this next race plays out. We've got another Porsche, Huber Racing's Jörg Dresselv, next to him. So 4 GT3 cars occupying the first 2 rows of the grids, and we can now go to, I believe, Daniel Harper and Lukas Gajewski.
Wave your mama.
And here we are with the endurance race pole setter Dan Harper, who will kick things off from the very first position on the grid after a very, very exciting day already. Now it's the big one, Dan. How do you feel?
Yes, I feel good. I'm excited to get back in the car after qualifying. Darren had a good 2 sprint races. He did very well. He was unfortunate in the first one to have some contact with another car, which affected the result, but he drove really well, and obviously enjoying the sunshine, so fingers crossed for a good race.
Now, obviously you are a BMW factory driver, and part of being a factory driver is to work together with gentlemen, amateurs and the lot. It's an interesting aspect of it, isn't it?
It is, for sure, yeah. It's a different way to go racing for me. Obviously the past few years used to being always in a pro lineup, but now working with Darren, it's really cool, and it also is bringing me on as a driver in a different way. To try and bring him forward, so loving it and looking forward now to the race.
Now, don't want to be rude to Darren, but I think it's no secret that he's slightly slower than you in this endurance race. So what do you think is a realistic target for this one?
Obviously the goal is to hope that there's little time or 0 time in the safety car, in the first stint and try to build as much of a gap as possible. But obviously the main focus here is to give Darren experience and time in the car. So as long as we have a clean race and can get to the finish, then that's a good one.
Have fun then. Thank you very much. Your last pole sitter of the season, Adam.
Yeah, and what a driver it is on our final pole position of the season in the form of Dan Harper. As he was alluding to there, he's well used to being in all-pro lineups, and he has become one of the go-to guys when it comes to peddling a BMW M4 GT3 car. Schubert Motorsport, one of the most competitive teams to use BMW machinery as well. So there is a very potent recipe at play there. As we can see, there are several gaps in the field, unfortunately. I think some of the drivers electing not to do the hour-long endurance race. So that is something to bear in mind. We might have a couple of pit starters as well, but certainly there are a few gaps up and down the grid. There we see Jörg Drysov, ready to go at the wheel of his Huber Racing GT3 Porsche. And there is the man we spoke to just a few minutes ago, Ronnie Bremer, at the wheel of that very impressive KTM Crossbow GT2 car. That is a car that we know has race-winning potential, but he is going to perhaps struggle a little bit more against some of those seasoned pros racing further up the order. So back to Lucas as he signs off for the final time on the grid in this season.
Yes, Adam, just one information I got passed from the Gedlich Racing organization. It's 0.99 points between our championship leader Simon Prim, which is Johannes Kapfinger. So it's 0.99 points between the two of them. That's going to be exciting.
I'm sorry, I was muted. I was talking away, but I'd muted myself. I apologise. I was just saying it's no fun at all, is it, until the decimal points come into play in a championship season finale. 0.99 points then. Okay, very interesting indeed. So we certainly have a compelling situation on that front. I can tell you that Matteo Ferrer is missing from that grid at the second, so it looks like Matteo Ferrer isn't starting the race. I'm cognizant of the fact that there are a few gaps up and down the order, but I will run through this as best I can, and if I do mention names of drivers that fail to take the start, I apologise. But let's run through the published grid as the drivers now go for the formation lap. It is Schubert Motorsport's Daniel Harper sharing with Darren Lung on that front row of the grid alongside Mikael Jus in the 91 Jus Sportwagen Technik Porsche. Kenneth Heyer is next in the Equip Vitesse Mercedes alongside Huber Racing's Jörg Drysov. Next up is Ronnie Bremer in the Rezoon KTM. He started on the third row of the grid last time. He was leading by the time we got to turn 1. Keep an eye on that thing. Next up, row 4, Mikael Kapfinger in the Huber Racing 35 car alongside Per Anderson in the 57. We think he'll be starting in the M-Tech Porsche. Published next, row 5, is Marcus Saubo in the Schutz Motorsport Mercedes, although I don't think that car was on the grid, so I'm not sure that one is going to be part of the race. Mick Pardo is next in the lap time performance Porsche. Next up on row 6, it is Thomas Anderson, another of the Rezoon KTMs, the 472 car we should see out there on the circuit, and I believe we do see it out there on the circuit. Then it's the 92 car of Martin Engelmeyer, another of the lap time performance Porsches. Let's get quicker here because we're running out of time. Kurt Eck is due to start the 93 Klaus Horn entry alongside M-Tech's Thomas Carlson. That's the 109 car. Row 8, Marcus Sedlmeier is alongside the 213 MS Racing car of Andreas Mill. Next up is row 9, Formula Racing's William Tavaya, a car that we saw retire earlier on in the day alongside Giuseppe Guerrieri of Raptor Engineering. Row 10, Igor Klaya and Formula Racing's Danilo Del Favero. That's another of the Formula Racing Ferrari Challenge cars. 11th row of the grid, Leandro Martins and the Huber Racing 33 car, I should say, of Johannes Kapfinger. That is one of our title contenders. Yves Goddard in the 52 car is next alongside Dennis Liebel in the 71. Then we get the CV Performance Group Mercedes, the 84 and the 85, both on the 13th row of the grid. Simon Prim starts 26th in this race. He is our championship leader by 0.99 points. Row 14 of the grid, Stefan Bastangiev for Overdrive Racing. He's always very entertaining in the Porsche Cayman. Another Porsche Cayman, Razoon's Leo Pichler is next in a Cayman on row 14. Row 15 is going to have to be the last row that I call out for you here. Richard Gonda in the BMW M4 GT4 car and Schutz Motorsports Alon Gabay in the 41 Porsche. That's the first 30 or so cars that we expect to see on this grid. We've seen that a few drivers have opted to sit out this endurance race, but we've got cars to spare in the GT Winter Series paddock, so it's still a huge grid of endurance cars that we have here. 1 hour of racing with a mandatory pit stop in the middle of the race. And that pit window is the middle 20 of the race. So with 20 minutes completed, they can serve their pit stops and they will continue on until 20 minutes to go. So from minute 20 through to minute 40, we'll see pit stops. It's 60 minutes of endurance racing that we have coming to you now with a mandatory pit stop, and it is Daniel Harper for Schubert Motorsport BMW on pole position. Michael Hughes for Hughes Sportwagen Technik starts alongside him on the front row of the grid. Kenneth Heyer is next on the second row with Jörg Dreisov next to him. Keep an eye on Ronnie Bremer in the KTM as well as we go racing, and Daniel Harper gets a great start as we get started in this one. Michael Hughes is going to have to settle for second. Could it be third? Because here comes the KTM again to the outside of the Sportwagen Technik Porsche. Let's take a look at that first corner and see whether or not we have a move for second place. Is Michael Hughes still there in P2, or has he been surpassed? I haven't been able to see, so we'll have to wait until we get to turn 3. There's Daniel Harper, and there is Ronnie Bremer. So Bremer in the GT2 spec Cup X category. KTM Crossbow is through into second position. Michael Hughes has to settle for P3 for the time being. Well, once again, Ronnie Bremer's KTM comes up top trumps here. Now, you've got to bear in mind that even though he's gotten past Michael Hughes, Hughes' car should be a couple of seconds quicker per lap around this circuit to Barcelona, Catalunya. However, the KTM is so quick out of the corners that it is exceedingly difficult for Hughes to capitalise. Of course, Daniel Harper, a factory BMW driver, we expect nothing less than a charge up and away from the rest of the field over the course of this hour-long race. What kind of advantage will he give Darren Lung when we have the pit stops? I think that might come down to whether this race stays safety car free or not. It may also depend on how quickly Michael Hughes gets past this KTM. Stunning in bare black carbon fibre. The 510 Razoon KTM Crossbow GT2 once again right in the way of Michael Hughes. The main frustration for Michael Hughes on this day is not the weather, that's gorgeous, not the car. It's the most successful car that's ever come from his team. It's that KTM up ahead that's slower in the corners but absolutely disappears away in a straight line. The GT2 class, designed with amateur drivers in mind, makes its time on the straights, not in the corners. Ronnie Bremer is a good driver, and so he's managing to hold on in the corners. And then he very much puts the loud pedal down when we get to the straights. Kenneth Heyer there in fourth position. P5 is the leader of the Cup 2 category. That is Mikael Kapfinger's car. That is a 991 specification Porsche. I wonder if Dieter Svets can continue that good form, if that is indeed Kapfinger at the wheel. Of course, Dieter Svets is the professional driver of the two, so I do wonder whether maybe he has started the car. But according to the timing screen, it's Mikael Kapfinger, so that's what we're going to go with for now. Here we go then, as we continue to follow Mikael Joos. Now watch, she pulls away in a straight line, does Ronnie Bremer, and then as we approach this fast sweeping turn 10, the Porsche once again ends up on the back of the KTM. Bremer deep into the corner at turn 12 to square up the exit of the turn. Mikael Joos there laying down a bit of rubber by the looks of it from the wide rears of that Porsche. As I alluded to, and that was a brief cut to onboard, but I don't think that was live pictures. That was Kenneth Hyer's car, but I don't think Kenneth is in the pit lane. He's still registered in 4th position. The KTM again disappears away in a straight line. Mikael Joos driving this car that he and his team ran for both Ian Changuven and Christian Engelhardt in last year's GT Masters season. One of the most successful cars to come out of the team, as I mentioned earlier on. Now, drive-through penalty has come up on screen already, and that is for car 58. That is the Kjellen Motorsport car. Matthias Kjellen then has a drive-through penalty. It doesn't say for what exactly, but Matthias Kjellen has been awarded a drive-through penalty. So then we will see the pit stops begin with 20 minutes of this race in the books. We are currently just under 5 minutes left, or 5 minutes into this race. So it's going to be a little while before we see these pit stops. There you see some of the Porsche Cup cars in the mid-teens, and there's a good battle on for GT4 honours if we hold this shot. Here is the GT4 lead battle, the two Porsche Caymans, the red and white car, then the green and blue Porsche following that. That is our GT4 lead battle. Leo Pichler leads the way for Razoon. They run a lot of KTMs. They've also got that wonderful Porsche Cayman. And then behind him is Alexander Hartwig for Allied Racing Porsche. Allied Racing, one of the best teams running Porsches, I would say, at the moment. Certainly at a GT4 level. The likes of Vincent Andronaco and indeed Alexander Hartwig lighting the GT4 European Series and ADAC German GT4 Series alight at various points during the year. So this is our GT4 battle that we follow at the moment. They've got a big KTM GTX specification car behind them. The GTX car is a little less potent in a straight line, but imagine it's still quicker than a GT4, so they might come under some pressure. Yes, indeed. There goes the KTM trying to get around Alexander Hartwig. Was up the inside there, and don't know if he made it stick. There are the two CV Performance Group Mercedes AMG GT4s. Those cars are running 5th and 6th in class respectively. Simon Prim is 6th in GT4. He is the second of those two AMG GT4s in the queue at the moment. A good start to the race for Richard Gonda by the looks of it, because he's got the Senkia Motorsport BMW M4 GT4 car up to 3rd in class. So Gonda in the number 4 car, 3rd in the GT4 category right now. That's pretty good going from the Czech team, or Slovakian team, I should say. There you see the various Cup and even the odd GT3 car just ahead of that GT4 lead battle, which passes under the drone, and then the rest of the top 5 or 6 also passing under our drone shot there. Stefan Bastangiev has dropped a position in GT4. He's down to 5th in class because he's been overtaken by Rauer in the 84 car. So the 84 CV Performance Mercedes has been demoted a position. We've got some Porsche Cup action here then, as the 911 car leads the 992. This is for 8th in the Cup 2 category. This is Martins in the 911 Racar Motorsport car, holding off Marcus Sedelmeier at the moment. It's the 911 car of Leandro Martins, just about holding him off for now. That 991 Cup car, a bit quicker in a straight line, but around the corners, the superior aerodynamics of the Porsche 992 Cup car comes in handy. And a dive up the inside potentially here from Simon Prim. He tries to get up the inside of Stefan Bastangiev, and they're side by side as they come out of turn 2. Bastangiev there was moving to lean on the Mercedes. Do they both come out in one piece? No. It looks like, oh yes they do, yes, so Bastangiev's still ahead of Simon Prim, so false alarm from me there. They are both still there, and Bastangiev is still ahead of Simon Prim despite the move there for 5th in the GT4 category. They've got someone behind them who's no slouch either, as we have a spinning Porsche Cup car. That is one of the cars that is further back. That is the 820 of Chinchilla, I believe. And that car doesn't want to get beached on the sausage curb. He gets it going. And avoids the gravel. Nicely done, sir. Oh, but comes out right in front of the leader, Daniel Harper. That will have given both drivers a bit of a fright. But hopefully can now gather himself up and get going again. We see their visual confirmation that still in second place is that GT2 car in the hands of Ronnie Bremer. 6.9 seconds is now the gap between Harper and Bremer in second place. Again, that GT2 car is always going to be a little bit slower than someone like Daniel Harper in a GT3. I know it's a bit of a misnomer that GT2 being a higher number is slower than a GT3, but that is traditionally the case. It's got the straight line speed advantage, but across an average of the lap on most circuits, the GT2 falls a little bit behind. So confirmation has come through to me of the point standings at the moment, and it's worth noting that Andreas Greiling and Jens Richter still very much in this championship hunt as well, just 4 points back in the 128 car. That, of course, being one of the Cup 3 entries, but the bad news for them is at the moment they're a distant third in class. I was mentioning earlier on, before we had a spin, that the Simon Prim, Stefan Bastangiev battle had someone who was no slouch just behind them. That's Yannick Mettler. Manic Yannick, the qualifying, well, not just a qualifying specialist, because he's no worse at races either, as we have a car stopped that looks like one of the 991 Cup cars. I think that's the 99 of Voigtman. Yes, it is. So Voigtman, who shares the car with Michael Klein, has unfortunately come to a halt there. And is there maybe a tyre down? That looks to me like the rear left might be down, but nonetheless the car has stopped. And regardless of the cause, that's not in an ideal position, so we'll see how that affects things. To finish my point on Yannick Mettler, I said he was going to be trouble for the likes of Simon Prim and Stefan Bastangiev, and indeed, he's gotten past Bastangiev, and now Bastangiev has also been overtaken by Kevin Engman in the Auto Lounge Racing GT4 car. So the Audi GT4, the number 7, is up to 6th in class, and Bastangiev has fallen down to 7th. In the GT4 categorization. We ride on board then with the Hughes Sportwagen Technique car of Mikael Hughes. He goes past one of the other Audis. That's the number 8 GT4 Audi of Pierre Lemers. And safety car has been deployed. So safety car has been summoned to the circuit. One would assume that is to collect the 99 car from pit exit, where it was previously stopped. But this is horrible news if you are Daniel Harper, because Daniel Harper has built an advantage of 9.2 seconds, which he intended to gift as a cushion to Darren Leung. And that is all going to be taken away now. Darren Leung is going to be furious, or at least bitterly disappointed with that. Of course, they don't have to pit the car until 20 minutes left to go in the race. The pit window opens in 7 minutes and 35 seconds time, but they have 20 minutes of pit window to let Daniel continue to press on if that's what they decide to do. So it's not necessarily the end of the world for their chances of giving Darren a bit of a margin for the second half of the race, but certainly Daniel Harper's hard work is effectively going to be evaporated away like the fat on the edge of a steak, unfortunately. So Harper, Bremer and Hughes will be our top 3, and I should mention as well, lest we forget that KTM is pretty good at this whole starting a race thing, especially here at Barcelona, where you've got a good 700-800 meters before they get to the first corner after the start-finish stripe. I wouldn't rule out that Ronnie Bremer could get himself into the lead off a restart if he's got a clear shot. I'm not sure if there's traffic between Harper and Bremer, though. If we can try and find that out once they're behind the queue, that would be ideal. We will see in due course whether or not there is traffic between our race leader and second place in the queue. But if there isn't, and there isn't, as we've now confirmed, Ronnie Bremer is in the pound seat here, because he has a rocket ship of a KTM GT2 car, and he's got a nice long run to the first corner to try and get himself ahead of Daniel Harper. Now, if the safety car doesn't scupper the Schubert Motorsport strategy, Ronnie Bremer getting in front of Daniel Harper would also definitely put another banana skin in front of that M4 GT3 car. Daniel Harper, I dare suggest, as a factory BMW driver, is more than talented enough to get back past Ronnie Bremer if he does get overtaken. But it's not going to be easy because, again, even though the BMW has better apex speed and a very talented driver at the wheel, once they get out of the corners, be it the acceleration zone directly following an apex, or indeed the long straights, that KTM has the edge. So once it's past you, it can be incredibly difficult to find a way back by. We know the safety car will be in for at least one more lap. Or will be out for at least one more lap, I should say. So the Nissan GTR leads them through once again. That would be a fun drag race. I wonder if we can organise that. KTM GT2 versus GTR safety car. If they're doing it from a standing start, I would probably, I'd probably assume the GTR by quite a margin, given its four-wheel drive system. Daniel Harper then leads the way from Ronnie Bremer. Mikael Hughes in third place. Then you have a back marker there in the safety car queue. Kenneth Heyer is next, fourth overall in his Mercedes-AMG GT3 from Equip Vitesse. In fifth place is Mikael Kapfinger in the Cup 2 class number 35 car. He leads Cup 2 at the moment, and he's got a couple of other cars between himself and the second place driver in class. That is his brother, Johannes Kapfinger, who is doing this hour-long race solo as he makes a bid for the title here. And per my very vague maths, and I put all of the emphasis on vague, second place in Cup 2 versus fifth place in GT4 for Simon Prim would suggest to me that if Kapfinger finished where he finishes now, if the race ended now, we'd be crowning Johannes Kapfinger champion. I believe that's the way it would go. Of course, we have a very complex point system here in the GT Winter Series, which is made in part to balance out the different class sizes. You can win in any class of this series because they all score points within their class rather than overall. So basically, there is equal opportunity for both Simon Prim and Johannes Kapfinger, and I would suggest that Kapfinger, being second in class, a class as big as Cup 2 as well, I think right now, if things were to finish now, he would be the champion. The safety car is in this lap then with 42 minutes and 55 seconds left to go in this motor race, and now we get to see in practice whether my theory is accurate, because we will now see whether Ronnie Bremer can find a way past in that KTM GT2 car. Now, what Daniel Harper is going to do here, because he's smart and he's well aware of the situation, is he is going to pull the pin and accelerate at the first possible opportunity. He's going to try and take turn 13 and turn 14 as quickly as he can to try and stave off the straight line speed advantage of that KTM Crossbow GT2. If he doesn't pull the pin soon, and he does it now, the GT2 gets a straight shot. I think Ronnie Bremer got caught sleeping a little bit there as well. He's going to struggle to get around turn 14. Does he have enough straight line speed now to challenge Harper by the time they get to turn 1? I think Harper has done enough there to stave off the advantage of the GT2. Indeed, he has. So Bremer got caught sleeping a little bit there. He closed up massively just before the braking zone. But Ronnie Bremer got a little bit caught out by Daniel Harper, and Harper took turn 14 at maximum velocity to ensure that he retained the race lead despite the straight line speed advantage of the KTM. Great driving from Harper then, and Mikael Jus is now seeing an opportunity to maybe challenge for second place here. Again, the KTM is certainly not a narrow car, and it's being made very wide by Ronnie Bremer. And the net result of that is frustration for Mikael Jus as he again gets to see the BMW in front of him, the GT3 class and overall race leader. And Mikael Jus, yes, he's a team boss in GT Masters, but he's a jolly good driver as well. Unfortunately, he's rather stuck behind Ronnie Bremer at the moment, and I imagine that battle is going to press on for a long time. Safety car has been brought in, and I'm understanding that that could be because of the number 4 Senkia Motorsport BMW, because I'm hearing that a GT4 BMW is stopped about the same place. Oh, okay, that's a big incident there, and you can see exactly what has happened. He has hit the wall coming out of turn 14. He will have more than likely overdone it going through turn 14 and hit the inside barrier, and he's hit that hard on the left rear quarter, so the safety car is out for a second time. And the reason why is that BMW M4 GT4 car, the Senkia Motorsport BMW, which was running third in class in the hands of Richard Gonda. And of course, this is going to be alarming for Senkia Motorsport. We could see there that Gonda is moving around in the cockpit. Hopefully he's okay. He will have taken a lot of force in that impact, but we see that he's moving around, so he should be fine. The question mark is that car. BMW M4 GT4s are new for the 2023 season. There weren't that many available to order. And if they have significant damage, then they might be down a car for their 2023 campaigns. I don't think it's at a point where a chassis would be unsalvageable. Certainly a rear impact is better for that kind of thing than a front impact. But I'm sure Senkia Motorsport are going to be very eager to get that car back to the garage and see the extent of the damage. Certainly, it is a significant amount of damage, and look how much that's folded in on the left rear. That is going to be a hefty repair job at the bare minimum for Senkia Motorsport. So, Daniel Harper, having covered off the potential threat of an overtake from Ronnie Bremer in the KTM Crossbow GT2 down the main straight, is now going to have to stave off the potential advances of Ronnie Bremer in a straight line in his KTM Crossbow GT2. Groundhog Day, Mr. Harper. We are repeating the process all over again, and you see there that we have our first pit stops ongoing because the window opened just over 2 minutes ago. We've got 38 minutes of this race left to go as it stands. And, oh dear. Well, we saw there Richard Gonda gesticulating as if to say, I'm not sure this is going to work, as they tried to tow the car back in with that very, very damaged rear left quarter. Now, the interesting thing this time by is how many front runners may decide to pit, because as the top 5 or 6 cars came past last time, they were just outside the pit window. So for the cars further back in the order, they got to pit last time. These guys could pit now, and I thought the solo drivers would do that, and that's exactly what Mikael Hughes, Kenneth Heyer, Mikael Kapfinger, Johannes Kapfinger, and quite a few other drivers have all decided to do. A lot of drivers here have decided to make that pit stop. If anything, I'm a little bit surprised that the big KTM continues to be out there on circuit, because that car is solo too, and if you can get your mandatory pit stop done under safety car, well, of course, that is beneficial. The safety car regulations are as follows on this. The pit stop has to take 120 seconds, so 2 minutes from pit entry to pit exit, and the stops have to be made between minute 20 and minute 40 of the race. So the pit stop's ongoing at the moment. And tyre changes on a few of the cars by the looks of it. It looks to me as though the U-Sportwagen Technic car might have received some new rubber. It was certainly up on the jacks before, and look at how busy this pit lane is right now. We saw that the Overdrive Racing 23 Porsche had served its pit stop. That could be critical in the GT4 order once everything pans out. Which GT4 cars haven't pitted yet? The answer is one of them. The Allied Racing car, Alexander Hartwig, which now sits 7th overall in the queue, is the only front-running GT4 car that hasn't already made its pit stop. That's an interesting strategy from Allied Racing, is it not? And we see there Mikael Hughes and Kenneth Heyer head back out onto the circuit line astern. Of course, they won't lose a lap here, even with a 2 minute pit stop time. They won't lose a lap because the safety car is lapping. Let's see what the last lap was for. The last lap, 3 minutes and 3 seconds. So there is the safety car going through turn 12. So you don't risk losing a lap by pitting in these circumstances. Safety car is in this lap, we've now confirmed. So we are going back to racing. And I think Ronnie Bremer may soon realise that there's been a faux pas from he and the Resoon Racing team, because they've missed their opportunity to make that solo driver pit stop under safety car conditions. 1 minute and 2 minutes, 120 seconds under normal racing conditions will cost you a lap. Bremer is going to lose out big time there, as are a lot of these drivers that are just funneling in to the pit lane now. I think Christopher Zirkling just made his way into the pits potentially. Zirkling has indeed come in. So I think that may well cost the 29 squad in the Cup 3 class. The race has resumed then. We are back to racing action. And we watch now as Mikael Hughes gets past the KTM Crossbow. It's one of the GT4 class KTMs. And Mikael Hughes filters back into the race in, I believe it will be 11th overall once the pit stops are taken into account. And so what he will want to do now, especially since he no longer has the Bremer KTM in front of him, is pound laps and try and move himself up to 2nd overall in preparation for Darren Lung taking over the Schubert Motorsport BMW, and then a potential bid for the race victory. And of course the other interesting thing here is that the gap between Dan Harper and Mikael Hughes is only 44 seconds. So let's play guesstimation game here. That could be out to a minute by the time we get to the end of the pit window. So in theory, Darren Lung is not going to end up with a lead in the slightest. If anything, once Dan Harper hands the car over, Lung is going to be down the pack. So I think potentially, as valuable as Dan Harper's driving expertise is, they may have made an error here by not making the pit stop during that safety car window. I suspect that is the case. There's another of the GT3 cars. That was the 93 entry, which is further down the order. There is the 472 KTM in. That's another of the Razoon Crossbow GT2s. So the 472 car is in. And is there a driver change expected in that camp? Let me just refer to my entry list for that information. Cup X 472, Thomas Anderson is driving solo. So no need for a driver change there. And the Cup X class car will soon rejoin the race. We watched the Ligier JS2R through shot there with one of the Huber Porsches just behind. And that car is leading Cup 4, the little Ligier JS2R is leading Cup 4. It is currently 13th overall, courtesy of the pit window shake-up. Oh, drifting out wide there. I think that's the 992 Porsche Carrera Cup car of Sebastian Daum. Just saw Harper through shot, our race leader. There's Bremer in second place. Third place overall at the moment is actually Cup 2 class leader Yves Goddard. Yves Goddard, who has actually just been overtaken by Alexander Hartwig. So Hartwig in the GT4 car is now third overall. Again, Allied Racing, much like Schubert, I wonder if they will eventually be rueful of not making that stop under safety car. Hartwig is the only GT4 car that didn't stop under safety car. And the gap between Hartwig and Pavel Lefterov, who did pit the car, or Stefan Bastangiev, of course, pitted the car for Pavel Lefterov, the gap between first and second in GT4 is only 12 seconds. So not only will Hartwig lose out on the GT4 lead, they'll lose a lap once the pit stop is made. A mid-pit window safety car is always the cause of lots of drama. And we're seeing that illustrated in vivid Technicolor at the moment. Dan Harper continues to pound laps here in the M4 GT3 from Schubert Motorsport. The gap between Harper and Mikael Jus is still only 46 seconds. Into the pits comes Ronnie Bremer. The 510 car is in. There are the two CV Performance Group Mercedes AMG GT4s. This is a battle for fourth in class. So leading the way is the 84 car. That car is driven solo by Fabio Rauer. And Jan-Philipp Springob has taken over the 85. And of course, Jan-Philipp Springob takes over from Simon Prim. Simon Prim has been present more often in the GT Winter Series than Jan-Philipp Springob. Therefore, Simon Prim is the only driver in championship contention in that car. And so now, for the next 28 minutes, Simon Prim will be watching in the pit lane, and Jan-Philipp Springob will be in charge of his championship hopes. That is going to be a very uncomfortable viewing situation for the young German. There's Dan Harper, race leader. We know he's not going to pit for another 7 minutes because there is no point pitting before the end of the pit window. in the situation that Schubert Motorsport find themselves in. They need to get Dan Harper to stay in the car for as long as possible, to build whatever cushion and whatever margin they can for Darren Lung. But Darren Lung is going to inherit a car that I think is going to be on the fringes of the top 10 at best. Compelling stuff here in the season finale of GT Winter Series, as Mikael Jus is trying to find his way past one of the KTMs there. That's the GTX specification KTM that he was trying to get past. And that was for third position on track at the moment. So Mikael Jus has managed to move up to third overall. He's trying to get up the inside of the 471 KTM. And he's done so, but watch this now, because Mikael Jus has gotten past, but that's a GT2 spec KTM that he's just overtaken. I was going to say the GT2 car will fire back past, but actually a bad run through turn 14 for the pilot of the 471. 472, sorry, of Anderson. I think has put paid to any issues there for Mikael Jus. So Jus is up to third place, and he's about to make a move for second overall, because that's the Allied Racing Porsche just ahead of him of Alexander Hartwig. Alexander Hartwig absolutely comprehensively outgunned, of course, in a GT4 car. That's Pavel Lefterov spinning. Pavel Lefterov spins out of second in the GT4 class. We just saw the Cayman recovering. Pavel Lefterov of Overdrive Racing has had a spin there. And I suspect that Herfler, Andreas Herfler, in the second place car in GT4 has just moved, or in the third place car in GT4, has just moved up into second place, courtesy of Pavel Lefterov's spin. Here's Christian Scar in the Audi R8 LMS GT4. Running all the way down in 25th overall at the moment. And if you want an illustration of just how costly making a pit stop out of the safety car window is, well, Ronnie Bremer has rejoined the race in 23rd position. Make that 22nd now. And I believe he is a minute and 20 seconds or so behind Mikael Jus, who previously he was ahead of. So because Mikael Jus made that pit stop under safety car, he has gained a minute and 20 seconds over Ronnie Bremer. That is the situation here. Kenneth Heyer and Mikael Jus, I believe, will end up fighting for this race victory despite the best efforts of Daniel Harper. The gap is 53 seconds between Harper and Mikael Jus at the moment. That could extend a little bit more, but there's only 4 minutes before the pit window ends. And the 85 car! And Simon Prim looks over the 85 Mercedes-AMG GT4. It's out! The title battle, the campaign for Simon Prim has come to an early end. This man was our championship leader by 0.99 of a point. And he is not going to score enough points to secure the championship here today. He's going to fall short. The question is to whom? I would say all signs point to Johannes Kapfinger here, who was second in the points coming into this one. He now leads in the Cup 2 class. So he currently will score the most points of anyone in Cup 2. And the same applies to third place in the championship. Because that is Jens Richter in Cup 3, the MS Racing car. However, Cup 3 is a less populated class. And therefore there are fewer points to score. I would say Johannes Kapfinger is on his way, potentially, to a championship here. If he can keep this car on the straight and narrow for the next 22 minutes and 35 seconds. I believe that will be the deciding factor in favour of Johannes Kapfinger, but Simon Prim, my heart goes out to the young man. Really great person. I've got to know him in this paddock and the ADAC GT4 Germany paddock. It's such a shame that his championship campaign in the GT Winter Series ends like this. The 71 KTM looks to be coming into pit lane. The Razoon car comes in slowly. So Liebel in the 71 with an issue. Dan Harper, who we just saw on camera there in the blue, white and red Schubert BMW, will have to pit this time by. It's 21 minutes and 45 seconds of this race left to go. So if he went past the pit lane again, he would miss the pit window. So it is now an in-lap for the Schubert Motorsport BMW. That car is just coming round turns 4 and 5 at the moment. And he will be pushing like crazy on his final lap before handing over to Darren Lung. And the question is, where will Darren filter back out? I believe he'll be outside of the top 10, unfortunately. Certainly he will not be the race leader. There is the BMW. We just saw it through shot there. Will be running down towards turn 10 at the moment. Mikael Jus in second place. He has made his pit stop, of course. And Mikael Jus is 5 seconds clear and going quicker than Kenneth Heyer as well. So I'm not sure that Kenneth has the pace to match Mikael Jus here. Of course, with lap traffic, that could all change. And you can see that Daniel Harper is pushing. Not only was he pushing, but he was sliding as well. I imagine if Darren Lung is still looking at the monitor, he might be thinking, I wonder how much tyre I've got left for this 20 minutes. Of course, tyre preservation should have been assisted by the fact we've been under safety car twice. Guerreri in the pits in that number 3 car, the Raptor Engineering Porsche. We just saw that in the back of shot. That car's being withdrawn, or at least observed, as Darren Lung initiates the driver change. Out gets Daniel Harper. Harper has pushed on admirably here, and he has extended the advantage for Darren Lung. But by the time Lung is strapped in and the mandatory 120-second pit window has elapsed, I'm afraid that Darren Lung is going to rejoin the race a long way down. And I've just heard information, I imagine gleaned by Lukas Gajewski down there in pit lane. The 85 car has a broken splitter down there. Now, broken splitter inherently isn't enough to park the car, but perhaps they don't have a spare, perhaps there is more damage feared on the car than that. But at the bare minimum, they have broken their splitter. And we know that the car is no longer circulating, and Simon Prim's championship hopes have faded. Now we see our 2 overall leaders. We just saw, as we were riding on board with Mikael Jus, he is now our race leader. Kenneth Heyer is now in second place. Third place is the 32 car. We haven't spoken that much about the Huber Racing 32, but that is the other Porsche 991.2 GT3 from the Huber Racing stable, and Manuel Lauck has taken that car over. Again, slow is the 71 KTM, so whatever issues that car has, they have carried over past the attempt at fixing it in the pit lane. There is the 37 Mercedes, that's the NM Racing car, in 4th in GT4 right now. And this is our race leader. Just behind 3rd in GT4, Fabio Rauer. Mikael Jus, our overall race leader, puts a lap on the CV Performance Group car. We've got 17 minutes and 55 seconds of this race left to run, and it is Mikael Jus in the race lead. 5.4 seconds clear of Kenneth Heyer. And was that Heyer in the pits? I thought Kenneth Heyer might have just gone into the pit lane. Let's hold this shot where it is. Yes, the 36 car is in the pits. And that's for a drive-through penalty. Infringement handicap. Okay, so I think the pit stop may have been too short. Infringement handicap. That's an interesting turn of phrase. I'm not sure exactly what that means, because as far as I know, there aren't handicap pit stops. In fact, no, okay, I think it might be because Heyer is regarded as too strong of a driver to do this solo. Okay, yes, so I think Heyer's pit stop might have been slightly longer as a result of his abilities and his driver rating. I believe he's an FIA Silver. So Heyer has made a drive-through penalty, and as a result of that, he's not only lost 25 seconds, he's lost second place. But what that does mean is we have an interesting situation for second now with Lauk in the 32 car. Manuel Lauk potentially under threat from Kenneth Heyer. And of course, there are two cars getting drive-through penalties, and this is the other one. I've only just realised the 91 car is the other car getting a drive-through, and here it comes to serve it now. My apologies, I was so focused on the fact that the 36 car was in, and here is the 91 car into the pit lane. Well, 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 this means that Manuel Lauk will take over as our race leader. The 32 Huber Racing Porsche will be our overall and GT3 class race leader. Meanwhile, Johannes Kapfinger has been overtaken for the Cup 2 class lead. And he has been overtaken by the 741 car. So that is Liskovski. Matthias Liskovski is our leader in Cup 2. There's our overall leader, and there's second place. So the upshot of that drive-through penalty is that Mikael Jus has rejoined the race 1.4 seconds back from Huber Racing's Manuel Lauk. I did get the name right. I just doubted myself. Manuel Lauk is our race leader, but not by a lot at all. He's got lap traffic up ahead of him, and he's got a charging Mikael Jus behind him. And both of these cars are Porsche 991.2 GT3s. These are identical cars in every sense of the word. So there is no excuse of blaming the equipment here. This is a straight gunfight with identical rifles. And it looks as though Mikael Jus is quicker on the trigger because he is closing in. The gap is already halved to 0.7 seconds. Mikael Jus doesn't want to stay in second place for any significant period of time. He goes through turn 14 right behind the Lauk-driven number 32. He uses a lot more curb coming out of the corner as well for a good run down the main straight. He's in the slipstream. He will have a slight pace advantage because of the slipstream, but of course the engines will be putting out near identical levels of performance. Oh, Cayman there just coming out of the pits, I think, on the apex. That was a little bit hairy. They've now got the CV Performance Group Mercedes just ahead of them. That's Fabio Rauer, who is third place in the GT4 class, so he's focusing on what's going on around him in his own battles. The GT4 class, incidentally, being led by Pavel Lefterov at the moment by quite a margin. The pit window safety car situation causing a bit of a split in GT4, and it's a move for the lead in GT3. Contact between the two, and miraculously Manuel Lauk just about keeps the car in a straight line. He will have been using all of the opposite lock in the world in order to hold on to that one. Mikael Jus was more than a little bit ambitious there, hopping up onto the curb, mounting the curb on the inside of turn 5. It never felt like it was going to work out from our vantage point, and sure enough it did not, but he's once again close behind as we approach turn 10. He's later on the brakes, but he goes defensive, and we cut back to live pictures. We lost a few frames there, and I don't know whether there was contact or not. If they managed to avoid each other, it was only by a little bit, but Mikael Jus once again sees himself in second place. He keeps trying to find a way past Manuel Lauk, but Manuel is not going down without a fight. Once again, Mikael Jus comes out of the corner, and look at the exit he got there. He was right on the apex curb there through turn 14, carried so much more speed out of the final corner. Desperately flashing the lights is Manuel Lauk. Braver on the brakes that time into turn 1 as well. He might be picking up some braking points here from his adversary, Mikael Jus. The Ligier JS2R is our lap traffic. And oh, he folds in on Mikael Jus, and I can tell you that Mikael Jus will be yelling down that headset at the moment. He will be saying, "What was that?" But probably in German and with more curse words. That was slightly questionable driving from Lemoyne there in the ANS Mode Sport car. It's important to hold your line, and that doesn't necessarily mean the racing line. You've just got to be predictable as lap traffic, and he was on the outside. I don't think he saw the second GT3 car in his rearview mirror, and that's why he cut in front of Mikael Jus. Well, every time Mikael Jus gets up to the rear of the race leader, either the race leader or someone else forces him to back out of the maneuver. We've got 10 minutes and 55 seconds left to go of this race. I'll tell you now, I'm smiling ear to ear. This is what GT Winter Series is all about. We've got two GT3 cars fighting at the head of the order, and they're having to duck their way through a massive 38 cars that started this race. Cup cars, GT4s, even GT2s. So many different flavours of obstacle for these two cars to handle, and I think turn 1 may be the place the move is made, because here comes Lauk and here comes Jus. Jus has the slipstream as they go into turn 1. Let's see if the move is made this time. The answer is no. Not quite close enough, Mikael Jus, on that occasion. Liskovsky still leads in Cup 2. Our GT4 leader is Pavel Lefterov. Cup 3, Jens Richter for MS Racing. Third in the championship coming into this one. He still sits in the pound seat in Cup 3, but I don't think that's enough for him to secure the championship. As it stands, my understanding is that Johannes Kapfinger would be champion, but it would be exceptionally close between the 128 crew and Johannes Kapfinger. That is to be seen later. What we see now is the battle for the overall lead. Manuel Lauk continues to stave off the advances of Mikael Jus in these identical Porsche 991.2 GT3 cars. This is the outgoing model, of course, of the Porsche GT3 lineup. The 992 has been introduced and has already been raced at Daytona, for example. But goodness me, what a race we have been treated to this afternoon in the endurance race. Lap traffic cutting in front of our lead battle. That's one of the East Talent Porsches. I'm not sure which one. And I have just received confirmation of what I've been saying. As it stands, Johannes Kapfinger would be our champion. Kapfinger, with second in Cup 2, would win it by just about 3.75 points. He will be our overall champion in GT Winter Series if things finish as they are. I don't doubt that things might finish as they are in Cup 2. I'm less sure about GT3 in the overall lead. Manuel Lauk is doing a fabulous job holding off Mikael Jus, but he's got to do so for another 8 minutes, and it's clear that Jus has the pace advantage. Is he going to make the move into the fourth corner? Not quite, no. Not quite. Mikael Jus Just waiting for the right opportunity. The lap traffic, again, such a factor. There is absolutely no respite here for Manuel Lauck in this stunning clash between these two drivers. Closing in as well is third place man Kenneth Heyer, who we just saw for Equipe Vitesse going past in third overall, but all cameras have to be tracked on this battle for the lead right now. We wait for them to emerge here at turn 10. And wait for it. Are they side by side? Almost! Goodness me! Mikael Hughes was definitely diving for the inside there. And how those two cars didn't just make contact, I have no worldly idea. We just caught the end of that incident, but effectively Mikael Hughes was trying to dive up the inside, and he got his nose chopped off by Manuel Lauck. What a stunning battle this is proving to be. Once again, Mikael Hughes gets the better run out of turn 14, but he's got almost no straight line speed advantage in spite of the slipstream, because these are identical Porsche 991 GT3 cars. He's not brave enough on the brakes into turn 1. He was too far back into the corner, so I'm glad he didn't make that move. But look at the speed. And look at the time he made up through turns 1, 2 and 3 there. He's clearly got more pace lap on lap than the Huber Racing entry. But it's getting past. He's now using the runoff area to get past. He's trying to go all the way around the outside at turn 4. Manuel Lauck manages to block him and then stops him from getting to the inside. Very heads-up defensive driving from Manuel Lauck there. An update on Darren Lung. We haven't mentioned where he came back out. He's made himself up into 6th place, so he did not rejoin the race in the lead. We knew that was going to be the case, but he's now worked his way back up to 6th position. So Darren Lung sits in 6th place overall right now and 4th in GT3. There are no battles closer than this up and down the order. And what a treat that it's for the race lead at the close of the GT Winter Series season. And that's the first slip-up from Manuel Lauck. And it might be the only one that he needs to make. Mikael Hughes has gotten through into the lead. Manuel Lauck went defensive into turn 10. That gave him a very shallow entry into the corner, reduced his apex speed. He tried to carry more speed than he could, drifted out wide on the exit of turn 10, and Mikael Hughes taking the racing line, swept past the number 32 car. Mikael Hughes is now your race leader, and once he gets ahead, I suspect there's no turning back. 29th lap of the race then, and already the gap is 1.5 seconds. Mikael Hughes has disappeared, relatively speaking, up the road already, and unless lap traffic really catches him out, I fear Manuel Lauck isn't going to have that many opportunities to try and close back in, because we could see quite evidently that Mikael Hughes was the quicker of the two. It's just that Manuel Lauck was very clever about where he was placing his car in that battle. The question mark now for me in terms of the overall order is whether Kenneth Heyer can get himself involved with Manuel Lauck, because the gap between them is under 5 seconds. Kenneth seems to be struggling a little bit through the traffic at the moment, but if he can find a way by the traffic, he might be able to close in on Manuel Lauck. This has been a stellar season finale to the GT Winter Series of 2022 and 2023. We've had fabulous racing all year long, starting in Portugal with Portimao and Estoril. We went to Jerez and we went to Valencia in February. In March, we have been to Navarra, and we are now here at the Circuit de Barcelona, Catalunya, for the season finale of the GT Winter Series season. And all 3 races in the GT Winter Series have been great viewing. Race 2, with the KTM Crossbow in the overall lead, was great entertainment. And now, race 3, we have seen a mighty battle between Mikael Hughes and Manuel Lauck. Lauck is now 2.3 seconds back and falling. So one would suggest the battle has been pacified, but what a scrap it was. Just going through shot there is the all-black KTM, the 510 car of Ronnie Bremer. Now, he has eventually ended up in 7th place. So he is 7th overall, and of course he is leading the Cup X class. And this, if I'm not mistaken, is our GT4 leader. No, it's not. My apologies. I'm mixing my liveries. Pavel Lefterov, though, is our GT4 leader, and he sits 11th overall at the moment. But Lefterov not in the immediate vicinity of this camera shot. He is our 11th place car at the moment, though. Other class leaders, Cup 3, it's still Jens Richter in the lead. He and Greiling, as it stands, would take second in the championship, so they will also surpass Simon Connor Prim. So as it stands, in the point standings, as of a couple of minutes ago at least, Johannes Kapfinger would be our championship winner on 125.76 points. 121 points for Greiling and Richter in the 128 car in the Cup 3 class for Cayman GT4 machineries. And Simon Prim currently sat with his head in his hands in the CV Performance Group garage with a stricken 85 CV Performance Group AMG GT4. He will only take third in the championship on 117.46. Isn't motor racing wonderful? We have seen a truly dramatic motor race here, and we are on the final lap. There is our leading car through turn 3. It is Mikael Jus, the race leader at the moment, as he heads towards turn 4. There is the Schubert BMW of Darren Lung. Darren has put in a solid stint here. He's been lapping quickly. But of course, with other cars making their pit stops in the safety car window, and the Schubert team electing to keep Daniel Harper out there on track, he lost a lot of time and has ended up 6th overall. Mikael Jus is circulating the Circuit de Barcelona Catalunya for the final time in this race. He is leading the final lap of the 2022-2023 GT Winter Series. He is not a factor in the championship battle, but he has been a factor at the sharp end of the overall order all day long. GT4 leader Pavel Lefterov is just ahead of him, so Lefterov is going to take the checkered flag just behind our overall winner. Mikael Jus comes around the final corner, and he will take the final win of the 2022-2023 GT Winter Series season. Second across the line just behind him, at least on the road, is our GT4 winner Pavel Lefterov. Manuel Lauk takes second in the overall classification ahead of Kenneth Heyer. In 4th place and leading the Cup 2 class at the moment is Lizovsky. Let's see him across the line in that 741 car. That is the Cup 2 class winner. And he should be across the line shortly. I believe this is him crossing the line now. And yes, indeed, it is the PTT racing car of Mateusz Lisowski across the line. But there is our championship winner. Johannes Kapfinger in the blue and yellow car that just came through shot. Takes 5th overall. More importantly, he scores points for 2nd in the Cup 2 class. He is our 2022-2023 GT Winter Series overall champion. Of course, it's all provisional, but we can say that provisionally at least he will be our champion for this season. We spoke to this great young man earlier on today. Lukas Gajewski commented that he could be a commentator because he was very good at giving very detailed answers to our questions. But this result today and his consistency across the season suggests that he's more than worthy of that race seat as well. He takes 5th overall, 2nd in class, and he is our champion in the 2022-2023 GT Winter Series. The car you see behind him, Darren Lung, It was 6th overall and 4th in the GT3 class eventually. Our overall leader in the early going, losing time, unfortunately, due to that pit window safety car situation. 7th overall and Cup X winner, Ronnie Bremer. 3rd in the class for Porsche Carrera Cup cars, the Cup 2 class, Sebastian Daum. The 90 car rounds out our overall top 10 and takes 4th. That's the lap time performance 90 car, rounding out the top 4 in the Cup 2 class ahead of a Strand in the MTech 57 car. We saw Pavel Lefterov across the line, of course, to take 11th overall and the GT4 win. Our winner once again in Cup 1, which I believe is a clean sweep for the day, Danilo Dal Favero. Only a class of 2 this time in Cup 1 for the Ferrari 488 Challenge cars, but nonetheless a good performance across the day from Daniel. Cup 3 winner, Jens Richter and Andreas Greiling. Andreas and Jens will also claim 2nd in the championship, just 3.33 points. 3.33 away from title honours. So 2nd in the championship for them. And Simon Prim, who's a non-finisher, will hold on to 3rd in the championship. Other classes I haven't covered. Cup 4, ANS Motorsport. Their Ligier JS2 are once again taking the win in that class. BMW Cup is a one-car entry. Javier Macias and Smorg taking the win in that in the promotion entry. In fact, they didn't take the start, so no, they didn't win because no one wins that class. Cup 3. We mentioned, of course, the 128 car, our championship runners-up, secure that result. And the GT4 result we've already discussed, but we will run through the rest of GT4 because Lefterov took 1st in class. The 96 car of Hofler and Leon Pichler took 2nd in GT4. That's the Razoon entered Porsche Cayman. Fabio Rauer solo in the CV Performance Mercedes AMG GT4. He took 3rd in the GT4 standings. Litvinenko in the Allied Racing number 95. He took that car from Alexander Hartwig, of course. They didn't pit until the end of the window, so they lost time as a result of that. They finished 4th in GT4, and rounding out the top 5 in that class is Lau in the number 37 NM Racing Team, Mercedes AMG GT4. Manuel Lau and Alberto Di Martin taking 5th in the GT4 category. Well, the drivers are reflecting on what was a hugely dramatic race. There are our 2 race winners, that being Lauk and Dreisov. I'm sure Jörg Dreisov is happy with that result. He worked hard for it. Or rather, 2nd in the race, of course. I'm getting myself mixed up. Jörg Dreisov and Manuel Lauk take 2nd in the race, but they did very well in that race, of course. Manuel Lauk with a massive defensive performance that was very entertaining to watch. Mikael Jus was our winner, and I think that carbon fibre damage is a result of just how intense the battle was between Manuel Lauk and Mikael Jus. Jus, of course, did get by and did claim the win. And he did so with one of the fights, I would say, not just of this GT Winter Series season, but potentially in the entire history of the GT Winter Series. That was a fabulous battle. And to say that Mikael Jus was being very brave with his overtaking attempts is understating it. But eventually he found a way by. And as the clock nears 6 p.m. here in Barcelona, we are awaiting our drivers for our podium. Manuel Lauk and Kenneth Heyer rounding out our top 3. They will be the overall podium. All of them, of course, are from the GT3 class. And it's going to be celebrations abound when we do the championship podium as well. And that, of course, will be the crowning of Johannes Kapfinger and the 33 Huber Racing Porsche. I'm sure that for the Huber team, for Johannes and his brother Mikael Kapfinger, I think emotions will be running high here. You heard that Kapfinger's plans for next year are in the Carrera Cup Swiss Series, the Swiss Sports Cup, where he will, among others, go toe-to-toe with Dustin Blattner, who was a great force in our earlier races in the GT Winter Series and was our championship leader after Valencia. The highly experienced Kenneth Hyatt and Mikael Jus having a conversation as well. Two drivers who are very familiar with one another. Pavel Lefterov there standing alongside them, and Stefan Bastangiev just left that camera shot. Bastangiev, who paired with Lefterov in ADAC GT4 Germany. Finally, they get a win in GT4 competition, actually. They've been very unlucky in ADAC GT4 Germany in 2022. Every time they looked to be having a good result, something fell afoul, usually not their own fault. So I'm happy to see them get some success here to close out their GT Winter Series season. And there is, of course, Lauk and his teammate in the 32 car, Jörg Dreisov. Manuel Lauk was very fun to watch in that race. Very impressed with his defensive driving. His placement of the car was immaculate there. There were a couple of occasions where perhaps he was a bit cruel, squeezing Mikael Jus out. But he was very canny in his defensive driving. And it only took one slip-up for Mikael Jus to find a way past. And once he found a way past, there was no looking back. Of course, as we allude to often here, racing drivers, difficult beasts to herd. Better luck with sheep or stray cats. But we will soon have everyone ready for the podium, I'm sure. 31 laps of racing in total, of course, including those safety car periods. And that was a hugely dramatic hour of racing. I must say, I'm looking back at it now and thinking, was that an hour? It felt significantly shorter. There is Johannes Kapfinger in the factory Porsche style race suit. That man is about to celebrate a GT Winter Series title win. Liskovski there as well in the Cup 2 winning position, of course, that 741 car. I believe he will be up there to celebrate scoring the most points of anyone in the championship standing podium. Of course, we do a podium for those that have scored the most points within their class, and I believe Liskovski will have scored the most of anybody in this race due to the size of the Cup 2 classification. More drivers filter in. I think we can be hopeful of an imminent podium at this stage. And good to see camaraderie between everybody there in the green room. The cool-down room, as it were, I'm sure, in these conditions. Even though the sun is now starting to set, it's still 16 degrees Celsius here in Barcelona, though that is not a cooking temperature by any stretch of the imagination. But especially those that drove solo across the hour, I'm sure they will be feeling it at this stage. Johannes Kapfinger, Mikael Hughes, Kenneth Heyer among those that will be able to attest the physical demands of racing the full hour. Of course, while we wait for this podium, I remind you that one of the most competitive categories all season long in GT Winter Series has been GT4. And GT4 is going to be its standalone series next year. Okay, I'm just hearing in my headset that there's a reason for this delay. You may note that there are a number of drivers there, but okay, there was an investigation for overtaking under yellows, but it has now been resolved, so I can hand over to Lukas Gajewski.
For the last podium of the year. Welcome to it, the last GT Winter Series podium in 2022 and 2023 after a fabulous last endurance race of the season. And let's welcome in third place, Kenneth Heyer. In second place, Jörg Dreiso and Manuel Lauk. And your winner, Michael Joos. So here we have the presentation of the trophies done by the Gedlich Racing organization, promoter of course for the GT Winter Series trophies being delivered there. Great to have a sort of pro-am duo on the podium with Manuel and Jörg in second place, and of course Kenneth in P3 and Michael as your winner on the highest step of the podium. So first of all, of course, as the guys already prepare their champagne, which is fair enough, we're going to take some photos of you. So nice to have you all collected on the top step of the podium. And when everything is done, let's have a huge round of applause and of course champagne for the top three of the endurance race. So this is your last overall podium of the season. Thank you very much down there in the pit lane for your company for this last podium of the year. But of course there is more to come. First of all, the points scorers podium in the endurance race, which of course has never been more important than today with the championship being decided. And I'm just trying to get a glance of our organizers inside, but as you can see, there is still some champagne being prepared for the second podium. So we're going to kick this off in just a second, or maybe two, because of course it's a lot of champagne there with quite many drivers. Packed grid once again for the GT Winter Series season finale here at Barcelona, which has been a great one. So do I get a thumbs up somewhere? I don't know. Can we start? Yes. Okay, so here we go then. The race points podium after the endurance race for the GT Winter Series. And in third place, once again, welcome to the podium, Michael Joos. Second place in the race points to Pavel Efterov and Stefan Bosandiev. Huge crowd down there in the pit lane. That's fantastic to see and to hear. And here are your top scorers in the last endurance race of the year. Congratulations to Igor Klaya and Mateusz Lizowski. So the two of them victorious in the Porsche Cup class, which has been fabulous this weekend with a proper grid and some great racing just as well. So trophies being presented by the Gedlich organization. And then, of course, once again, guys, I know it's going to be pretty packed, but get together on the highest podium for the pictures. And the teams cheering them on. And with the photos being taken, congrats once again, and of course, the champagne! Some of the guys escaping the champagne shower there, but that's well deserved after a very long and hot day, it needs to be said, here at Barcelona. So these are the top scorers. Now it's going to take some more cleaning for, well, let's be honest, the biggest podium of the day, which is going to be the championship podium. It's been a great fight, and now, of course, we have a top 3 ranking for the championship, which is prepared in just a couple of moments. Of course, we need to have some of the trophies and some of the champagne bottles rearranged for the overall podium. And it's been such an exciting decision with, I think, what was it, 0.99 points before the last race of the day, and now we have a new champion and of course fantastic drivers in P2 and P3, which will be on the podium just as well. But I think we're just waiting for the trophies being delivered and brought onto the podium. So can we go? We don't need the champagne up here, that's okay? All right, so then here we are, the championship podium, and it's been a pretty bad day for him, of course. Came here as a points leader, ended up being 3rd. Please give him the biggest round of applause possible. Fantastic season for Simon Prim! Simon, of course, being disappointed, but it still was a great season, and there he is in P3 overall. In 2nd place, congratulations from MS Racing, Andreas Greiling and Jens Richter! Runner-up in the championship with their Porsche Cayman GT4 of the Cup 3 class. And here he comes, the new champion of the GT Winter Series 2022 and 23 in the Porsche 992 GT3 Cup, entered by Huber Racing, Johannes Kapfinger! That is your new champion. We spoke to him earlier after the first race, where he got a big haul of points and he made it all stick in the deciding 3rd race of the day. And here he is, the Gedlich Racing organization, joined by Werner Eichinger in this case as well, our race director, who is also presenting some of the trophies here to our winners. Simon Prim in 3rd place, Markus Gedlich delivering the trophies to Andreas Greiling and Jens Richter in 1st place, and of course the championship trophy. Once again, big round of applause. Your new champion is Johannes Kapfinger. So, let's get you all together on the highest podium for one last picture today, after a great and thrilling season finale. And I think we're sort of good with the ceremony, are we not? So we'll just decide to be done with it. Guys, thank you very much for joining us in the pit lane. Can we just have another big round of applause? Simon Prim in 3rd place, Andreas Greiling and Jens Richter in 2nd place, and your champion is Johannes Kapfinger. And the champion of commentary is, of course, Adam Weller, who has joined us on the podium to close, well, not only the live stream for today, Adam, but also the 2022 and 23 GT Winter Series season. I think today was another example of what this championship is all about. It's about close racing in fabulous locations and, of course, with nice weather and everything that makes it so enjoyable.
It's exactly what I said right at the end there in that GT3 overall lead battle. Having those GT3 cars dueling for the lead in amongst the GT4s, the Cup cars, that is what this series is at its core, as a spectacle. And what a spectacle it has been for us today. I'm sorry if I smell slightly of champagne. Pavel Lefterov gave me, quote, a wet hug.
Right. And apart from that, I mean, I really feel sorry for Simon Prim, stood here on third place on the podium. I mean, it was a splitter damage. It was not a big deal, and losing a championship like this is always such a bitter pill to swallow, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. You could see it in his body language when he came up onto the podium. It's a cruel, cruel loss for him. He's got his 2023 plan set in stone. He's a young pro racing driver. Not all of them have that at this stage of the year. So he has a lot to be happy about, a lot to be optimistic about for the rest of 2023. This is going to sting for a little while.
And of course, Johannes Kapfinger being very happy and lucky today just because of the amount of cars in his class. But to be honest, that's just how it works. You just need to cope with it.
Yeah, no, very true. It's one of those things with the point system. Of course, when you've got more competition, I guess it makes sense to score more points. So I do understand that. And, I mean, he pulled off his job to perfection. He won that championship today. Not in the endurance race, but in race 2. If you've been watching all day, you remember he started 38th in race 2, and I exclaimed with sheer surprise that he was 8th at the end of it. I was shocked that he'd managed to do that, 8th overall, mind you, and I think that was the race that won him the title.
So I think there is not that much left to say at this stage, except for thank you very, very much for joining us this season, whether it was on the live streaming or on various other channels. And the good news is, Adam, we'll try to sort ourselves out and to be back next season with a full season coverage.
Yeah, no, that is, as I understand it, the plan. I'm so excited to take in some of these wonderful Iberian circuits, not in the winter, but in the endless summer, as it were. The GT Winter Series Canada looking great. We're going to introduce the GT4s as well. There's a lot to be excited for 2023, 2024.
Thank you so much for joining us this season, and from all of us here at the fabulous Barcelona circuit, it's good night and take care. Bye-bye.
Bring your friends, dive right in, let's go. Come aboard and get in the toe. Let the rhythm take control. It's going down tonight. Yeah.